Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us at our event today. We're absolutely delighted to have this first official Peace Plus event. And you might wonder why we're having this before the launch of the Peace Plus programme next spring, but it's to give you plenty of time to prepare your application, to give the information you need to be able to actually prepare it to be ready for the call when it opens next spring. So, first of all, I'd like to say, in this region, we've probably become quite complacent about EU funding programmes over the last 20 years. We've moved through iterations of the Peace programme and the Interreg programme. And so I don't want anybody to think that this is just another Peace programme. It's not. We're very, very privileged to have this programme. And I really want to acknowledge and pay tribute to the EU and the UK government who included the Peace Plus programme within the withdrawal agreement right from the beginning of the negotiations. We're in a very different world post-Brexit, and I'd like to acknowledge as well the support, and I think it's recognition of the importance of the work that we do in this programme and that you projects are doing every day out there. The support that we've had from the Irish Government and from the Northern Ireland Executive in the development of the programme and the continuation of this funding has been second to none, and I'd really like to thank them for that. It's really important to understand that this programme is really unique. The Peace Plus programme is a combination of the Peace programme and the Interreg programme. It is not a replacement for any other lost funding for the region. There are other sources of funding for that, such as through the UK Government and the Northern Ireland Executive, and indeed there are other EU programmes in the rest of Ireland. This is a unique peace-building programme. The focus is on building peace, reconciliation, relationships, trust, and moving forward with prosperity for this region. And as long as you approach your project idea with that objective in mind and that ethos across the whole project, I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. But it's important to know peace building must be at the heart of it. I'd like to introduce you to our Managing Authority Director in SEUPB, Paul Beattie, who's going to outline some of the higher level aspects of peace building and the Peace Plus programme. And then also you're going to hear from our consultant who's working with us over the next few months, and you'll see most of, Emer Bush. And some of you may already remember Emer. Emer is a past employee of SEUPB. Can't quite believe it's 8 years ago since she was with us, but we're very welcome, are very delighted, and we want to welcome her back here today. And I hope that you will certainly enjoy working with her over the next couple of months. Thank you.
Good morning and thank you for coming. We're delighted to welcome you to the first in what we hope will be a series of pre-development workshops for the Peace Plus programme. Area 3.2, the Peace Plus Youth Programme, is the first area for which we're offering some support. It's anticipated that similar support will be offered for the other areas of the programme in due course. My name is Paul Beattie, as Gina has said, and I'm the Director of the Managing Authority at SEUPB. Today I'll introduce the workshop and provide some background and context to the Peace Plus programme. We hope this workshop might have been delivered in person, and indeed that's what we'd initially planned. However, we've learned many lessons in the past 2 years, and one of those is that we have to be adaptable to last-minute changes. And so we find ourselves back online for the time being. This presentation should take around 30 minutes, after which there'll be a chance to ask questions through the moderator. Everything that's said today is said in the context of the Peace Plus programme, still awaiting final approval. Because of this, there'll be some questions that we might not be able to answer at this stage, but we're briefing you with what we can at this time so that you're ready and supported for when the call to Area 3.2 opens later in 2022. What we'll cover this morning is broken into 5 broad areas. First, I'll talk through the policy context of the Peace Plus programme. Then I'll move on to providing an overview of Area 3.2, our youth programme. I'll then hand over to Emer, who will talk about the pre-development support on offer. Emer will tell you about this new support we're trialling, which includes something called a concept note. She'll take you through the steps in building a strong proposal and provide some broad parameters as to how things might roll out over the next 6 months. And finally, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation. So first, let me put the new Peace Plus programme in some context. We've reached this point through a detailed process of collaboration within the Northern Ireland Executive, the Government of Ireland, the UK Government and the EU. So together we've drafted a new programme that will contribute to a more peaceful and prosperous and stable society in Northern Ireland and the border region of Ireland. We believe it will leave a significant and lasting legacy. It's an exciting programme that builds on the legacy of all the previous Peace and Interreg programmes. But Peace Plus funding is distinct. It will fund activities that promote peace and reconciliation and contribute to cross-border economic and territorial development. So that means it's not a replacement for previous government programmes. So how was Peace Plus developed? It's been a long road in getting to this point, but given the scale and scope of the programme, it's been well worth it. SEUPB commenced Peace Plus development process in 2019. And since then, there's been considerable preparatory work, research and stakeholder engagement. This has included public events, survey submissions, public consultation and ongoing bilateral meetings with governments north and south. So the programme will look at two things. It will continue to take the opportunities and address the needs arising from the peace process to boost economic growth and stimulate social and economic regeneration. And it will promote social inclusion, particularly for those at the margins of economic and social life. The value of the programme over 7 years is €1.144 billion. The ERDF contribution, at about 80%, has been matched by the UK and Irish governments. That means applicants can apply for 100% of their project value. So it's a wide-ranging programme. It has 6 themes and 22 investment areas. And all investment areas have a sharp focus on the peace impacts and legacy that they will leave. Cross-community and cross-border collaboration is key to the programme, and all projects must have demonstrable peace impacts. Commission rules allow for participation with partners outside the area of Northern Ireland and the 6 border counties. And if you're considering partners from outside the region, what really matters is that the benefits of the project are significant for the programme area. The theme of children and young people was important to Peace 4, and indeed the promotion of practical cross-community and cross-border contact between young people has been fundamental to the peace programmes since their inception. The feedback on the continued need to engage and inspire children and young people in Peace Plus has been overwhelming, so it remains an important and integral part of this new programme. Of the 6 Peace Plus thematic areas, 1 is dedicated to young people. That's called Empowering and Investing in Our Young People, and it's worth around €123 million. It comprises 3 individual investment areas as follows: Shared Learning Together programme, €51 million, Peace Plus Youth programme at €47 million, and Youth Mental Health and Wellbeing at €25 million. Area 3.2, the Peace Plus Youth programme, is what we'll focus on today. Other thematic areas within Peace Plus may provide significant opportunities for youth sector involvement. So should you discover that the children and young people investment area is not for you, then there are other parts of the programme that may be more suited to your target group and how you operate. So in this slide you can see the 5 other investment areas within Peace Plus. Depending upon the project you have in mind, it may be that investment area 1, where we have our local peace action plans and the small grants programmes, is more suitable for your participation. Engaged and animated young people are critical to how we build a more peaceful and stable society for the eligible area, and young people have to be at the heart of our search for peace in the region. There have been many inspirational case studies and stories of transformation and change for young people who took part in the last programme. So before I hand over to Emer, I want to show a short clip from one of our Peace 4 programmes. In it, participants from the Journeys projects tell of the difference that participating in Peace 4 made to them. These are achievements in the current programme, similar to those that we'd like to see going forward. This is one example of many, and by showing it, we're not showing any preference to one project over another. So I'm going to let the young people speak for themselves through this video.
On Journeys, I participated in a programme called Ignite through school, where we joined with 5 other schools and learned about different communities. It widened my confidence greatly. I've met new people, gained new friends, gained new skills. I was able to become an ambassador in Ignite and then went on to further programmes. We done a soup kitchen where on a Friday night we fed people who were less fortunate and didn't have probably the money or the time to cook food for their families. We brought them in, gave them different care packages, clothes and different meals, you know, something that they miss out on. I think if I didn't take part in Journeys, I probably wouldn't be as confident as I am, or have as many friends as I would, or be as outgoing as I am.
There was different workshops and certificates were done, such as the big one was learning about different cultures, like equality, diversity, and the best thing about that was there's so much to learn. I didn't realise how little I knew. The biggest one for me was the sense of direction. I came into it with none at all. There was no sense of direction whatsoever. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. That's how it was sort of like a last chance sort of thing. It helped me a lot with my leadership skills and knowing how to talk to people and connect with them, let's say. It just helped me, you know, actually be a lot happier and a lot more confident, I feel, being able to get that sense of direction, meeting new people, meeting friends. I've got friends from this programme for life as well, so that's also a big thing, and it was probably the best thing I ever done, definitely up there.
Good morning everyone and welcome online. My name is Emer Bush and I'm pleased to have been appointed on a consultancy basis, as Gina explained, to provide pre-development support for the next few months under Investment Area 3.2. I really wish that I could see you all. I wish we were here in person, but I'm just going to have to imagine a sea of faces in front of me. I really hope this will be the start of an iterative process of sharing ideas, building strong partnerships and being in an informed position when the call for this area opens next year. I'm going to work very closely with the SEUPB, particularly the JS, in the coming months, and I'll respond to everybody who requests help of me. At this point, I just want to remind you that as I speak, if you have any questions, note them down, and if you're near a computer, which you will be, email them to communications@seupb.eu, and we'll try to deal with as many of those as we can at the end of the presentation. Let me take you straight in to the specific objective of Area 3.2. Text is on the slide. It seeks to enhance the capacity of children and young people to form positive and effective relationships from others with a different background, develop their confidence and future potential, and contribute towards the creation of a more cohesive society. Young people are essential to ensuring the long-term peace and prosperity of the programme area. Many have grown up in predominantly single identity areas and attended single identity schools. And combined, these factors have resulted in limited, if any, opportunity to develop relationships with those from different community, cultural, political backgrounds. An independent evaluation of the Peace for Youth programme, that was the previous one, funded by Peace 4, evidenced significant progress at a programme level and provided a really strong case for further investment in this policy area. And young people, they want a youth programme for the Peace programme. Last time around, they said it offered them a challenge. They said it was safe and secure, and it provided them with social opportunities. And it introduced them to new communities, people from different communities, culture, backgrounds, religions. Most importantly, they said it changed them for the better. So we consulted with and listened to young people, and the programme has been shaped according to their needs and is bigger and better than ever. The young people recruited onto this thematic area shall be aged 14 to 24 years. And in this slide, you will see the characteristics of those young people targeted. Disadvantaged, excluded or marginalised, have deep social and emotional needs, and are at risk of becoming involved in antisocial violence or distant activity. And this will make all the difference. Participants will not typically be in education, training or employment. And why? Because evidence tells us that these are the young people who really need targeted support. This time around, the PEACEPLUS Youth Programme will place even more evidence on employability skills of participants. And this is particularly important given the extent to which the youth population has been impacted by COVID-19. The last 2 years has been hard for all of us, and there have been negative impacts above and beyond the immediate health implications of COVID. It's been a time of disconnection from peer relationships. It's been a time of heightened anxiety, and both of those have hit young people particularly hard. The project that you've put forward should focus on achieving results for young people across 5 areas. And these are really important for you to note and learn and remember and focus on. Good relations, number 1. So that's about having the tricky, difficult discussions about sectarianism and racism, about making a positive contribution to reconciliation and building respect for diversity. It is a peace programme. As Gina has said in her introduction, this lies at the heart of the programme. Personal development, that's about developing the fundamental social and emotional soft skills of the participant, building their leadership, helping them with self-awareness and confidence. I skipped one, I'll go back. Citizenship. Oh no, Citizenship is developing the capacity of the young person. And then I'll move on to personal development and developing their social and emotional soft skills, their leadership, their self-awareness. Employability skills. Those are the soft employability skills that are identified by employers and the young people alike. So about their positive self-perception, their good interpersonal skills, basic confidence for going into the workplace, and some basic understanding of what it is to work, and giving young people the belief that they can actually get into a workplace and begin to work. And finally, positive progression. We want you to support the young people in their next steps once they leave the programme, following completion of the programme. Where to next? If you have been involved in the previous programme, and I know many of you tuned in today will have, you will be familiar with the expression tools for change. So let me explain a little more about what I mean by this. Every project selected will have demonstrated very thorough planning, and it shall contain a programme of work that's meaningful, purposeful and sustained. The programme you develop will embed within it a youth work approach, and I'll talk a little more about that in due course. A youth work approach in non-formal learning environments, and provide access to a range of activities known as tools for change. So tools for change, for example, could be sport, could be drama, music, culture, might be language with new communities. It could be entrepreneurial activities, volunteering activities, social action. It could be residential learning. This time around, it could be overseas trips where the need is demonstrated, and I'll come back to that in a little while. Other developmental activities, peer mentoring, you will come up with many more. A little note about overseas travel. We're aware that there is detailed research showing the positive benefits of external placements and interactions. So this time around, overseas travel is considered eligible, so long as it is justified and there is a good track record of the lead partner and partners delivering it previously. I would say in terms of tools for change and the activities that you deliver, you'll need a variety and a range to respond to the diverse needs of young people, because we're all different. What engages me will not engage another person, and young people are equally varied and different in their likes and what they enjoy. One size will not fit all. Another term you will hear used in relation to the PEACEPLUS Youth Programme is distance travelled. And the short clip that you saw at the end of Paul's presentation showed that the right activities, the right tools for change, bring about positive change for young people in the form of clear, meaningful and sustainable distance travelled. And this must be measured and captured as part of your monitoring and evaluation. So in the clip that we just saw, we heard testimonies of change, of distance travelled. For example, that young woman who said, it widened my confidence. Or the young man who said, I came onto the programme with no sense of direction and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then he speaks on and he said, he turned around that feeling. I came away with leadership skills. I came away being able to connect with people. I came away with friends for life, which is a wonderful testimony. All of that is distance travelled, and make sure it's in the context of peace, positive relations, cross-community activity. What you are seeking to measure in distance travelled is an increase in capacity, confidence and achievement demonstrated by enhanced awareness, understanding and a change in attitudes and behaviour of the young person participating. In short, the PEACEPLUS Youth Programme asks you to ensure and to emphasise a change as a result of the participants' learning and development as a result of their participation on your programme. And you need to build in monitoring and evaluation personnel to begin tracking and measuring this from the outset, although SEUPB will also appoint external evaluation to support you in this. This slide talks about some of the key features of the PEACEPLUS programme, and I'm presenting this to you today in the context, as we've already said, of the programme not being fully signed off. However, at this point, we're working with the following as a guideline. So you shall focus on the most marginalised and disadvantaged young people, as I've already said. You shall employ a youth development approach. We envisage that there will be fewer lead partners in the PEACEPLUS programme than previous. We're aiming for somewhere around 5 to 6 lead partners. Therefore, it will be scaled up and projects, as a minimum, will train around 1,200 participants. Projects will be costed over a 4-year period. We understand that there may be a lead-in required for that, for projects to recruit and come to the full implementation time. High-level programme indicators for this investment area as they currently stand are the output indicator. That's 9,750 young people, aged 14 to 24, participating in approved cross-border, cross-community programmes to develop their soft skills and respect for diversity. And the result indicator, that's around completers, is that 7,500 young people will complete those approved programmes. You must factor this into your budget. Understand that there will be a drop-off and that you will enrol young people who won't finish. I spoke earlier about M&E in relation to distance travelled, and distance travelled tends to be qualitative, but there must be effective means built in for quantitative monitoring, for keeping track of those numbers engaged, their attendance, their hours. I'll speak a bit more of that shortly. So some of the headline features of the PEACEPLUS Youth Programme are that it targets young people across the 5 areas, and I spoke about the 5 areas of good relations, personal development, citizenship, employment skills and positive progression. A brief note now on the younger age group. So it is the 14 to 24-year-old age group, and obviously 14 to 16-year-olds, that's mandatory school age. And this age group should only be included where their needs and circumstances very clearly align with the description of the target group, and in instances where it could prevent early disengagement from education and is complementary to mainstream provision. Please allow a minimum of 6 to 9 months for your programme with the young person. It'll depend on the needs of the young person, but 6 to 9 months is what we think. This time frame must allow sufficient intensity to ensure that the programme that you give them is transformative. It should include 3 or 4 days participation a week, and a minimum of 250 hours across the 6 to 9 months, across the 3 to 4 days of participant contact. Not all of it has to be in person. Here we are today online. Who knows what 2022 holds? Hopefully better times, but you may have to deliver some of it online. It will be a personalised programme of activity. As I said earlier, one size does not fit all, and it will embody a youth development approach. And we expect an 80% attendance rate. Staff, your staff, the project staff for the funded project will have regular liaison with the quality and impact body. That's the first time I've mentioned this. The quality and impact body will help you with monitoring and basic project implementation. Briefly, the quality and impact body will be appointed to support projects, and it will be selected via an open call, the same as all other projects. It will be independent of projects, but work with them. In terms of this slide and those figures that I presented around contact hours, around number of days and attendance rates, all of this needs to be collected and evidenced. The youth development approach, there's a slide here that talks about it, but you're all the experts on the youth development approach. You're trained in it, and I know it's embedded in the work that you do. So this slide is to remind you that we expect your proposal to be built around a youth development approach, and that it must be embedded and integrated into the programme that you develop. So I'll just touch on some of these bullet points. I won't go through them all. Young person centred. The young person should be engaged in the project design. They should be talked to as you deliver it, adapted according to what they say. Feedback and evaluation from them should be taken on board. The things that are important to them taken into account, and their experiences used to support the learning. Another bullet point there is around organisational and staff values. Well, values and staff behaviour should be such that interactions with young people are characterised by empathy, respect, compassion, patience. All of those things the belief that the young person can grow and change. And I know this is your bread and butter, and that youth organisations live and breathe a youth development approach. I won't go through them all because it is core to your work, although we will expect a youth development approach to be evident in every application. Having talked to you about as much of the specifics of Area 3.2 as I can and what a PEACEPLUS youth programme might look like, I now want to dive into what the specifics of the pre-development support that I'm offering in the coming months looks like. So it includes a partner search function that is up and running, that's on the SEUPB website, and already some names and contact details are up there. And those are organisations who have said, we're open to having conversations, there's email addresses that you can contact, and already people want to talk, communicate and collaborate, and that's great. So any other people who are willing to have conversations, please go onto the partner search function, and if you're willing to put your details up there, please do. This is the chance to tell me about your idea and receive feedback. It's the time to find out before the call opens if this is the right investment area for you. It's the time also to learn if it's not the right investment area for you and to be signposted elsewhere. For those with strong concept notes, we will have one-to-ones and we will discuss how your project can be further developed. Concept note, so I've mentioned it. This will be available from today. It's an opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about your idea, and if it shows promise, you'll be offered further support. My email address is on the concept note, so you'll immediately be able to drop me an email and ask some more questions if you have it. Let me tell you about it. It covers some, but not all, of the questions that will be in the application proper. It's designed in order to help you put foundations in place so that when the call does open, you've a very good, strong project idea. And more than that, you've got it worked up, you've got good foundations in place. It's not, however, part of the application process. It's not a formal application and it's not scored. For the next 10 slides or so, I'm going to focus on some of the key questions that the concept note asks. As I said, I'll just repeat it, it's not part of the formal application process, but we do envisage that it's a valuable step in making an application. And should you choose to proceed after the concept note, the work that you put in, I really do think, I believe, will make for a stronger and more robust project built on strong foundations. So the uncompleted form that's available to download from the SEUPB website is short. It's uncompleted, it's 3 pages long, and there's a page of guidance at the back. Page 1, you're invited to provide some high-level project details, basic questions, and then there are 5 longer questions that we're asking you to respond to in 500 words. I can give you advice while you complete, so pre-completion, as well as post-completion. I'm asking you to send it back to me no later than the end of January, 31st of January 2022. Sooner if you've got it. My role is to review them, to respond and to follow up with every application, but in particular with those that are strong. It's probably going to be online meetings in the future. We'll see again how things pan out. I will work very closely with the JS, I'll work very closely with SEUPB, and I will respond to everyone. As I say, the sooner you can send this note in to me, the better. So let's dive into what the questions in the form are. The basic details are self-explanatory and I'm not going to touch on those today. Today I'm going to go through the 5 main questions in the form, and the first one is about your project. So in this section I want to know how your project aligns with area 3.2 of PEACEPLUS and what it's trying to achieve. And we've talked about that in great detail. Tell us about the activities you propose. Have the participants been involved in the design? Is it young person centred? Are they engaged? Is their voice heard? Does it embody a youth development approach? This slideshow will be available afterwards on the website, and you can go back to the slides that talk about activities, the tools for change, that talk about the youth development approach, that talk about the basic objective of 3.2. A little bit more about question 1. In designing your project and telling us about it, please consider the need for mental health support services, including counselling, both for participants and for frontline youth workers. Think about any barriers there might be to participation for the young person. I'm thinking about things like childcare, transport, particularly for those based in rural areas, language support for new communities, disability access and incorporation of any gender-specific approaches as appropriate. I did mention the 14 to 16-year-old age group, and I'll mention it again, that early intervention. So yes, of course, they're built into the programme in instances where it can prevent early disengagement from education and is complementary to mainstream provision, and where the needs and circumstances of the 14 to 16-year-olds very clearly aligns with the description of the target group. As I said earlier, this is still mandatory school age, so you must liaise with the schools. It is anticipated that the majority of participants will be of non-school age. And finally, consider online learning. Build in what it's hard, nobody has a crystal ball, but make sure there's provision in the event of COVID restrictions, ongoing COVID restrictions. Make sure you build in provision for online learning if necessary. Question 2 asks about your outputs and results. So how many young people do you aim to support and over what period? How will you recruit them and how will you retain them? How will you keep records of their participation? And how will you measure that distance travelled that I spoke about for participants in terms of good relations and citizenship, personal development, employability skills and positive progression? You'll do it by assessing change in knowledge, attitudes and behaviours. Question 3. This is about the cross-community and cross-border nature of your project. Projects must be cross-community. It is the PEACEPLUS Programme, and projects are strongly encouraged to be cross-border wherever possible. So tell us about the geographical area you're covering, and tell us about your proposed partners, what area you all cover together. How will you ensure participation from all communities so that the programme affects meaningful and ongoing focused change and contact between young people of different community backgrounds? This is key. This is just essential that you're able to do this. Is your project making specific effort to include young people from minority communities? Now, research has shown that increasingly young people from the region don't like to be categorised by religion, and we are taking that on board and considering how we track this and how you track this. But it is a peace-building programme, and we need to ensure that cross-community is embedded. Your participants should be reflective of the demographics of Northern Ireland and the border region. And the breakdown of those participating, it must be meaningful. It can't be tokenistic. So strong attempts to ensure that there's meaningful cross-community participation. Question 4. This is all about staffing. This is about your project team partnership. Tell us about the project team. How many? Who's doing what? Are they suitably qualified? What are their qualifications and experience to deliver in the project? What are your practical arrangements? Do you have them in place? Start thinking about them. Practical arrangements to support the smooth implementation. So tell me about staff supervision and support. This theme of PEACEPLUS requires intense engagement with the right participants so as to achieve significant changes. So with this in mind, tell us about the staff to participant ratio and the level of contact that the frontline youth workers will have with participants. There also might be need for out-of-hours contact, so think about that. There might also be the need for supplementary access to specialised support. Think about that. And think about the aftercare, because now we are also in this new programme talking about positive progression. I'm still on the staffing on this slide. I'm still on the partnership. Think about the management arrangements. I've been told that last time around a project chart was incredibly useful for the project and for the JS. So that should show your decision making, your lines of communication, your financial flows. It's never too early to look at the project partnership organisational chart. Is it a tested partnership? Some may be and some mightn't be, and so you may be bringing in new partners. Remember that you need a lead-in time to recruit your full complement of staff. So your start date might be a project start date and your programme to the young people might be a little later. Is this factored into your timeline for delivery? In this question, tell us a little about appropriate policies and procedures you have in place. So the likes of safeguarding. You will all have an individual safeguarding policy, but you will need a safeguarding project partnership policy. So begin to think about that. And it's not the first time I'll talk about this, but think about financial security. Do you have sufficient cash flow in place to be reimbursed in arrears? We need to be sure that you won't struggle to deal with the financial aspect of project delivery. We need to be sure that you can get on with the delivery to the young person and not be distracted by financial claims, by administration, by monitoring and evaluation. So, and in order to achieve this, the proper corporate backup has to be in place so that youth workers are working with the young people and not doing the admin. I'll talk about that a bit further on. Question 5 is on the subject of value for money. Now, projects should be designed to achieve the target number of participants on the basis of an approximate cost of €6,000 per participant. You may vary. This is an indicative figure, and variance from the standard cost may be acceptable in appropriately justified circumstances, but that's the baseline that we're working to. That 6,000 will include all staff costs, the youth workers, the support staff that I've just talked about, all activities for the young person, the tools for change, all the programme, all the wraparound. In value for money, we will look at salary scales. Are they the right scales, appropriate, justified for a suitably qualified team who are delivering youth work with significant youth work experience? And do you have the right and sufficient support staff built in? The admin, the finance, and the monitoring and evaluation. Your budget, when you come to the budget section of the concept note, is calculated as staff costs plus 40%. And we will check that the programme offered, that the range of tools for change activities adequately justifies this 40%. Those are the 5 questions. But I want to pause for 1 second and take a moment to underline the extent of what it is to be a lead partner, the lead partner responsibilities. A lead partner will be an organisation who can handle the governance associated with a project of this size and value and can manage the outputs and results for the young people. In order to do that, you'll be responsible for coordination. So coordination, we talk about submitting, drafting and agreeing the application and submitting it. You will assume responsibility for the smooth implementation of the entire project and coordinate all partners and activities. Financial management, the lead partner will ensure budget control. The lead partner will be responsible for making eligible and timely claims, for ensuring that there is sufficient cash flow for the entire partnership, will do the fund allocation to partners when the claim goes in and the funding comes back out, and will accept risk in the event of ineligibility of claims or failure to meet targets. In terms of reporting, the lead partner will coordinate all of the record keeping. The lead partner will oversee monitoring and evaluation, will maintain records and ensure timely progress. Now, you may delegate some of these responsibilities, but ultimately, in terms of the SEUPB, we will look to the lead partner for doing all of this. Training, the lead partner will roll out any training, be it technical or related to the programme delivered. Communication, you'll communicate with your partners, with SEUPB, with the Quality and Impact Body, and any other support that is put in place during the course of implementation. For example, when there is a consultant appointed to assist with distance travel, that will be another organisation with whom the lead partner will communicate. And finally, as I've already mentioned, the lead partner will be responsible for ensuring all policies and procedures are in place, so safeguarding, reliable systems, staff support. In short, the lead partner accepts overall responsibility for ensuring the implementation of the entire project. And if you can't see from this slide that it is a significant role, well, I will repeat, this is a significant role, being a lead partner. So my message is, take this time, the next few months, to build your partnership. Be clear on who is doing what, and build a framework for communications. Speak to other potential applicants. Try not to cover the same patch, and continue to learn from each other and share best practice. I would also say, don't bite off more than you can chew. You know, take a step back, take a breath and ask yourself, can we deliver on this scale? Or might another part of PEACEPLUS be better for us? Shall we wait? Should we wait until small grants open? And I can assist you. I can talk to you about that when your concept note comes in. Think about the finance. Can you manage the cash flows required for a project of this size? And to go back to a point Gina made at the very start, have clarity of purpose. Yes, this is youth work, but it must have a laser-sharp focus on peace building and good relations. Peace plus. Hold that in your mind at all times when you are completing a concept note, an application, or thinking about applying. How am I making a positive impact on peace for Northern Ireland and the border region? And finally, think about how you're going to monitor your targets. Really important to keep track of that from the very start, your targets and the distance travelled. As we've said throughout this presentation, the pre-development support that I've been appointed to deliver for you is being offered in advance of the PEACEPLUS programme being fully signed off, and in advance of final details of the call being agreed by the accountable departments north and south. So it's in this context that we tentatively offer some timeframes going forward. So the timeframes are that the pre-development support is open for Area 3.2 only. Other pre-development support will come on stream in due course. For the time being, it's the PEACEPLUS Youth Programme that it's here for. The concept note is downloadable from the SEUPB website. So I would say, get your hands on it, complete and return it as soon as you can. So the deadline is the end of January, but please come in sooner and then you'll get feedback more quickly. Feedback, you'll receive comments within 15 working days. And any support, I will offer further support to everyone, excuse me, but the level, the intensity of that further support will depend on both the fit and quality of what you've outlined in your concept note. Any questions, drop me an email. I'd be pleased to hear from you. In due course, as I said, all documents, programme rules, guide for applicants, the call material will be made available. That will all be issued once the cooperation programme has been signed off. So before you make your formal application, you should consult all those documents. For the time being, what we have for you is the programme overview available on the SEUPB website. And we will have this slideshow available. We will have frequently asked questions that we will upload onto the website as well. Here we have a slide with some key dates, and it just underlines those key dates that I've just provided that are really around the concept note going live today, being available to complete and submit until the end of January, and potentially, we hope, a call opening sometime in the spring of next year. I'm so pleased to be taking on this role. I'm so pleased to be working with some of my former colleagues, and I really look forward to chatting to many of you. I believe and I really hope it's going to be the start of a fruitful process, so I would encourage you to get in touch. Now it's time for questions. Hopefully you've been emailing some in as the presentation has gone along. I know we got some questions in advance of the presentation. And Paul, I'm going to hand over from Paul. I'm going to have a drink of water. And Paul's going to answer some of those questions, and then I'll pop back up and do some more. Thank you.
Hi folks, I have to apologise if you've heard any whispering in the background. It's us frantically scribbling as the questions come in. So we've got a few here, just going to go through, and some of them fairly straightforward. So the first one is will Emer fill in our PEACEPLUS application for us? Well, I have to say, disappointingly no. So that's one you're going to have to do yourselves. But our first point of entry into a successful application for PEACEPLUS is that you can design a project, base it on your own concept, and communicate it to us via the application form. Take advantage of the advice that Emer does give you, because she will be working with us to give you as much clarity as things emerge and as your project develops as we go along. But unfortunately, she's not going to complete your application for you. We did get a wee question about some of the abbreviations we use, so we probably should have had this at the start, but just to explain, SEUPB covers three areas, but the two main ones that you'll probably be liaising with would be the Managing Authority, which looks after the rules and regulations, and the JS, which is the Joint Secretariat, and that's who you'll be liaising with at the application process. So sorry we forgot to clarify that at the start. We have a wee query here about the limitations of trying to design a project in the context of a pandemic. So look, we've all had to learn to be agile in how we work. Think about the lessons you've learned from working through the pandemic. How quickly can you reach target groups despite those restrictions? How quickly can you move online if you have to? I understand that obviously within every application form there's usually a question about risk management. That's where you would address the plan B, as it were, how you'll react to those changes in case there's any cases of COVID within your group, changes of delivery. But essentially what we need you to do is deliver on the core principles of the programme and just be, we have worked with projects over the past 2 years as this has unfolded, and I would like to hope that we'll be able to continue to work flexibly as we can. That said, we hope by the time letters of offer are hitting the ground, we'll be well on the path to some sort of recovery with a much lessened impact from the pandemic. We'll just say we've had a couple of queries about community background and the good relations requirements for PEACEPLUS cohorts. So we know from previous work that young people are less inclined to be defined by their community background. How we get you to measure that as your project progresses remains to be determined, but I can assure you we're looking at this very seriously. As a working brief, we would propose to continue with existing programme output indicator guidance, and you should also consider the community background of the area in which you're working and ensure that participation is reflective of that. So, look, in addition, we also want projects to be encouraged to be cross-border, but it is not a requirement. Given that there'll be a smaller number of projects this time round, partnerships should aim to have a cross-border element to supplement the cross-community work embedded in the programme. For those based in the border region in Ireland where there are different issues around community relations, just to mention we're giving this consideration. Existing guidance provides for those from other communities to be recognised within the projects, and fostering a sense of welcome and tolerance and friendship with new communities is central to developing those wider relationships. So it's entirely appropriate that all communities be included within the programme, and the cross-border aspect of the programme can help achieving that cross-community participation. Now, we have a query about the rationale of costs being calculated in terms of completers. Target output is an EU programme requirement, so an indicative cost needs to be established. And we've recognised the challenges around engaging with children and young people within the existing programme. And so the indicative cost has been increased to €6,000 per participant, which is around an increase of 1,000 per participant. So this indicative budget relates to the number of completers and all efforts that have to be made to achieve that number. This then obviously leads to the question regarding the achievement of targets. And when constructing your targets and approach, just be cognizant of the fact that it's possible that if the project does not achieve the agreed outputs, funding awards may be reduced accordingly. But again, we will try and help and assist as much as possible. We do this on a case-by-case basis, and everything we do at that, we would try to do for the good of the project. There is a query about geographical distribution of projects, and just to say very briefly, when assessing all our projects, we'll ensure that distribution is even and covers the entire target area. You'll know that we have call documentation that goes out in advance of each call. We'll be addressing how that geographical distribution happens within that call documentation. Just a couple of other quick queries that came in. There was a query here. There's some very large target numbers for one project. Are young people who have taken part in previous youth programmes going to be allowed to take part in PEACEPLUS? Well, yes, there's no restriction on that. And finally, from me, just before I hand back to Emer with any more questions that have come in, how does SEUPB envisage the programme being person-centred and needs-led when there are still restrictions around the requirement and length of intervention. But that's over to you in the design of your project. Use the base criteria that we give you to extend the building of those relationships. Young people build from there, and it's a peace programme, and therefore you should use these as a minimum in your project design, and sustained contact is what we're looking for in some of these projects. Now that's all I managed to get scribbled down as I was sitting waiting on Emer to finish up, so I'm going to hand over to her for a few more questions.
Thank you, Paul. I would have thought that answering questions to a camera with no people would have been a dream, but believe me, I would much rather have you all in front of me, heckling, shouting, arms in the air. This feels quite artificial, but we'll push ahead. What do I see? What questions I had? So there was a couple that came in before the event, and it said, what happens if my project idea is unsuitable? Can I keep completing concept notes ad nauseum? If your idea is deemed not suitable, you will have of course you'll have the opportunity to respond to reasons as to why I and JS and SEUPB have said it is not, and to come up with an alternative idea. Ultimately, this is not a formal call, and you will be given an opportunity to submit a proper application when it opens. However, we would expect that there's going to be positive and negative aspects of nearly every concept note that comes in. And you should really take on board the response given and listen to what's the best course of action for you. Another question said, what's the limit on the number of partners you can have? Well, there isn't a limit per se, but I would say, you need to have a strong rationale for the number of project partners selected. So why have you got that many? Why do you need that many to deliver on the project outputs and results and to deal with the target group? The partnership should be one that's best placed to deliver intense engagement and participation from young people. But I would say, remember the significant role of the lead partner. As I talked about late in my presentation around coordination, financial management, reporting, communications, and bear in mind that the more project partners you have, the weight of this responsibility gets bigger. There was then a question that came in, and it said, what is meant by the lead partner accepting risk in relation to claims? The lead partner is the organisation who signs the contract. So in signing that contract, you essentially are accepting the risk in terms of the budget control, claims, cash flow, fund allocation, ineligibility, and failure to meet targets. Now, you will sign the contract with the SEUPB, but then you will have a partnership in place with your project partnership. How you then want to trickle that down into the partnership is up to you, but ultimately the lead partner will sign the contract with SEUPB, and you will be then accepting risk. All sorts of scribbles here. Another question came in, and it said, there's a couple of questions in one here. One was, will there be a small grants programme, a small grants element to the Peace Plus Youth Programme? That's investment area 3.2 that today's all about. No, there won't. The small grants programme is under investment area 1. It's under investment area 1.2. It's not open yet. I can talk more about individually to you if that's an area that you think is suitable for you. That's of grants for up to 100,000. And then another question came in, said, what about the more community-based youth providers? So that's where you will go. That's probably a much more suitable home for you. So that's thematic area 1.2, small grants programme, up to £100,000, and it will open later on. Let's see. How much budget can be spent on overseas travel? That was another question that came in. So it's going to be a new eligible area for expenditure, and we have no specific limits set around it. I would say, like everything, it has to be reasonable, justifiable, and offer value for money. And the majority of your costs will relate to activity in the eligible region. So it will be a small proportion, but we have no specific limits set for that area of the budget. Here was one. There was one about research that came in. Somebody who said, I work with a group of researchers focusing on marginalisation of post-primary pupils from different migrant backgrounds, including those who are asylum seekers and refugees. I wonder if this call for funding is suitable for our type of research. Could you let me know? This came in before the presentation. This is not a research call, so whoever asked this question, I'm sure now you know because you've listened to the presentation. It's not a research call, it's hands-on programme delivery. However, your target group of asylum seekers and refugee is part of the PEACEPLUS target group for the PEACEPLUS youth programme. So it could be that you're suited as a project partner. I would direct you to the potential partner notice board. I would encourage you to have a conversation with a partnership that might be coming together to see if what you're doing might relate to a partnership might be interested in it, but it's not a research programme, I would say that. Are there any other questions? I think we've... Paul has got more questions, which is good news, so I'm passing back over to Paul.
This will be brief, folks, and then I'll pass back to Emer just for some concluding remarks. Just a couple that came in at the last minute here. Queries about partnerships outside of Northern Ireland and Ireland. Yes, we would encourage it if it's a natural fit. And the example we would give would be obviously under the existing programmes of Scotland. We would welcome those outside partners, and the programme should be seen as north, south, east, west and European. We query about payments. There will be no payments made to participants, and equally we are looking obviously at our whole claims and payment system to project partners. We know that there's been some blips along the way in the current programmes, but what we're looking to do for the next programme is certainly speed it up with some positive changes that we're implementing now. So hopefully PEACEPLUS will be a much more pleasant experience if you're waiting on those claims. Just to say, in the context of the question that came into us, one size does not fit all. Whatever way you wish to do your hours is up to you and to put into your application accordingly, as long as the contact is sustained and demonstrates longevity between those participants. Those were just a few wee quick ones that came in at the end. I think Emer's going to go over how this stands at the moment, but do keep any questions coming in, and if we can't do them now, they'll certainly be included on our FAQ and our website after the event. So I'm just going to hand back to Emer for some concluding comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Concluding comments, I've got a couple more questions. They just keep coming in. So there's one about, is there a minimum number of partners? No minimum number. Again, the partnership best suited to deliver a quality programme for young people. And then the call, these are all tentative. We would hope that the call will open in the spring of next year. And when should activity start? We would hope that your programme of activity will start towards the end of next year. So I would plan on that basis. Now, that's been a quick roundup of some of the questions. There are more coming in, and what we're going to do is we're going to do up a frequently asked question sheet and have it onto the website available for everyone to download. I've enjoyed that, surprised myself. Despite not having people here in front of me, I've imagined that you're there. And we hope that you've received all the information you need today. If you have any further questions, broad programme questions, you can email them to me, and my email address is on the concept note. You can also email them to communications@seupb.eu, and as those come in, we will compile them into one document and share them with everyone so that that consistent message and information is given across to all of you. Follow our website for further information. Follow it for today's presentation, for the potential partners notice board, and for the questions that continue to come in as we draft responses to them. After this event, you will receive an email containing a link to provide us with feedback via SurveyMonkey. So if you could take a few moments, there are a very minimal number of questions, to complete that and send it back to us, we'd really appreciate it, and it will give us good information on how we can adapt and change and give as best a service as we can to you going forward. And all I have to say now is thank you for joining us from your kitchen table, from your study, wherever you're seated. And I look forward to working with you in the coming months. Thank you.